It's weird too. One thing I noticed too as I've gotten older, it's you notice that the left and the right are always rotating around each other too, right? Like
they are now, aren't they?
Like
I've thought.
Yeah, like it seems like it. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say I thought for a moment. When was it? It was around the time. Yeah, about 2015, 2016 when Trump was doing his thing, and the left and the right seemed to be colliding somewhere. They seemed to be almost the same somehow, and it's almost as though that was the moment when they passed one another. They passed one another on their journeys in the opposite direction, and it's like the lefties are now the fascists. Whoa, what's going on? My head can't take this.
I know, and it's funny too when you see it like in open air, right? When you see like a lefty who's screaming for equality and love while they're pounding you over the head with a sign.
Yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy. Like, there always has been, but why is it? I was a lefty for a long time when my pal Michael was being a right winger. I was a lefty, and it was always the lefties were always for reason and calm and love your neighbour and all that kind of stuff, and it just seems to have completely flipped on its head. I wonder what's happening. Has one of those sides, the left or the right, stayed the same and the other has orbited round? Or have they both kind of orbited? Or is it like a kind of to use the orbit kind of analogy, is it that the two satellites that are orbiting are just breaking up into, and we're going to get a ring system around this, so there won't be a left and right? Is that what's happening? That there isn't any longer any left and right. It's just a kind of maelstrom of just different ideas that you pick according to what you think, and you're neither. I don't feel now that I'm left or right. I don't feel as though I've gone to the right. I feel as though I've learned more and I can see things from all directions a bit better. So I guess I don't feel as though I belong to either of those satellites. So maybe that's what's happening. I don't know.
Well, you're right. I'm not sure. I could be a generational thing too. That there's always the loudest generation, and they always seem to be different than the generation that precedes it. So it could be a flip like that too. But I don't know where it is. Because I growing up, I remember getting roped into adult conversations quite often. I've always spoken to people who are more mature than me or whatever, and I'd often get asked how do I align politically, and most of these adults asking this were usually conservative. And they wanted me to say I was liberal and then argue me out of it, right? And I would say I'm neither. And they would get really upset with that because they'd be like, what do you mean neither? You just don't pay attention? You just don't care? And I'm like, no, I pay attention more than most, but I don't believe that any one side is like a holistic answer to anything. Like I feel like it's a lot of I saw it as division. And back then I didn't have the vocabulary or the wisdom to truly explain what I was thinking or feeling. So I would buy into it. I'm like, you're right. Maybe I need to be left or right. I got to figure which one is. So then for a while, I would pick one side or the other. Sometimes I just call myself a libertarian, right? Because I'm like, those guys are right down the middle. Like it's a whole lot of just fucking leave me alone, right? Like just get off my lawn. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's my politics, and that became a big thing for me for a while too. And then I would make excuses for trying to make myself look like a libertarian, but I'm not a libertarian. I don't align with libertarian ideals. So I'm back to that. I vote who I agree with at that moment in time, and then I spend the next 4 years feeling either they didn't win, the person I vote for doesn't win, or they do win, and I get disenchanted with all the lies they told me, right? Because that's basically the result every time, right? So I found myself back in that position I was when I was a teenager, where I just tell people like I don't really have a side because I align, as I get older, I align with more traditional conservative ideas or right wing. But in my heart, I'm a liberal. Like in my heart, I want to help everybody. I think we should all have the same of everything, the same amount of everything. We should all share, and we should all kind of just be a base level happy society. But then as I work harder and I get older and I see these fucking assholes take and take and take, I get bitter and I feel this like rage build inside me where I'm like, no, you know what? I should have more than you because I fucking worked twice as hard as you did. And I made better decisions and I did everything better than you did. So why shouldn't I have better? And that's, and
yeah,
so I feel like as I get older, I feel like that voice gets more seated, the traditional right-wing voice. But I don't embrace any of it, right?
Yeah.
I just try and follow what I know is to be right, which is like do unto others and lead with love and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I try.
Yeah. I think that's that journey that you described there. of going from the sort of egalitarian viewpoint where we should all be equal and we should all have the same and all that kind of stuff, and then sort of becoming into your own, into your adulthood and into your prime, and sort of assembling your life around you, and that's now your life. Whereas when you're young, you're still finding that, so you don't have anything to protect. You're still a force that can be pushed in any direction or find your way to any direction. But once you get somewhere and you've got some stuff, whether it be material possessions, property, relationships, creative stuff, whatever it is, you suddenly realise the value of conservatism is that you want to protect that. That's the value of the idea of conserving something and saving it and keeping it is more important to you than what when you were younger, which is destroy everything to make room for yourself. That's the way I kind of felt. Rip it down, bring it crashing down, and then we can build something better, was the way I used to think. But now that I've got my my slice of the pie, I don't want anybody taking it off me. I don't want to I don't want it all to come crashing down. I quite like it the way it is. So I think that's a natural sort of progression for me anyway, to be more cognizant of that kind of stuff. And I guess the word conservative means, as well as conserving things, it also means you're less of a risk taker. You are less progressive, because that's the other side of it, isn't it? You see there's less value in just rushing headlong into things, and it's one of the sort of dystopian things about our society is that we don't value older people in the way that many societies still do. I think the Muslim world, the Sikh world, there's a lot of sort of religious kind of ideologies venerate their older generation and use them effectively to steer them, And I think that's, as I've got older, I've sort of realised that, in our world, the world of the English-speaking world, the West, age is frowned upon. It's just you're getting more and more useless by the day, and if that's the case, then you kind of end up buying into that. You kind of go, yeah, okay. Well, if you don't want my advice, fuck off. I'll just do my thing, and you do whatever the hell you're going to do, because by the time you fuck it up, I'll be well gone.
Yeah.
I'll just do what I can to get by. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's and. Those are all the things you as your mind, it digests it as you go, right?
Yeah.
And then your experiences just kind of get thrown at you.
It changes, doesn't it? You change. You definitely change as you get older. It comes. It came as a huge surprise to me. To sort of think about the way I'm thinking and thinking about the things that are important to me. It's like, yeah, it's not the same as it was at all. It's different now. Wow, I never saw that coming. Even though every old person told me, one day you'll think the same as we do. And I don't think so. Well, I don't think quite the same way that they used to think, but I can see where they were coming from. I can see why they were horrified and confused by my youth. The things that I believed in and the things that I'd said to them were ridiculous on occasion, and I was the kind of person I needed reasoned argument. I needed you to reason with me, and I was not surrounded by people who could reason. It was my dad was okay with some of that, but he was always too authoritarian for me. He was always, it would always come down to, that's the way it is, that's the way it's going to be. Right, okay. But I didn't really have anyone that could persuade me, that put forward a good reasoned argument. So I just stuck to my guns and got quite a lot of things wrong.
Yeah. I cringe when I think about myself. Usually, if I could think back anywhere, usually 5 years earlier to where I am now, and think about the conversations I've had, I often cringe. And I think, I can't believe I said that aloud. I can't believe I said that.
Really?
In front of. Yeah, there's a lot of things I've done I'm proud of, but there's a lot of things I've said, and and it's sad because sometimes when I look back, it's not all negative, my cringing. Sometimes I'm more ashamed with who I've become, that I'm not able to do what I used to be able to do, rather than was willing to.
All right.
Like I used to have a sticker, like a bumper. I've talked about this before. I used to have a bumper sticker on my car that says 9/11 was an inside job.
Yeah.
I don't anymore. I don't put it on my car anymore. I still have a pile of them, but I can't. I don't have the courage to put it on my car anymore.
Yeah.
And that's, I did it for years and years. And the courage came from the fact that sticker meant something to me deeply. Not just something I'm saying to offend somebody or ruin their day. Like it was a deeply meaningful statement to me. And now I'm afraid to put it on there because I don't want it to reflect poorly on myself or my family or my daughter, I feel like it'll only do me a disservice. It won't help me in any way other than make my life more uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Which I never used to do it to make my life comfortable. I did it to wake people up, but
you did it to challenge people to
yeah, or bring people together. Like I used to love when I'd come out of a store and find someone waiting by my car to have a meaningful conversation with me about my sticker.
Really? That happened?
Yeah. It happened a handful of times, yeah. Or my driveway, or wherever my car may be, right? Like it would, one time I had a guy, I was outside doing yard work, and some guy came up my driveway and says, "I've been waiting to meet you for years." I said, "Why?" He's like, "Well, because I've seen your bumper sticker 1,000 times, but I've never seen you. And now I see you, and I want to come say hello."
Oh, that was good. Wow.
And he was wearing a T-shirt at the time that had Hillary Clinton on it, and it said Hillary for prison instead of for president.
So
we knew we get along.
Yeah, that's the kind of social interaction that would never happen here. That would never happen here.
No, eh?
No, you couldn't do that. I don't know why. I mean, you could work it out why, but that's a very North American thing. I see it in the movies and the culture that comes over. The stories that are told about themselves. That idea that you just meet somebody like that and you immediately sort of bond over that kind of thing. And I saw it when I was over in America. I saw it happening round about me. It was like, these people don't have any of the social taboos that we've got. I mean, if you go into a cafe or a restaurant or any sort of public space in the UK, you don't make eye contact. You don't look around. You don't look at what other people are doing. You don't pay attention to them. The only people you'll speak to in that place are people that you know, who you've known previously. You don't. But when I was over in America, it was like everybody was checking everybody out. Everybody's like, "Who's this one?" Like you say, the guy's seen your bumper sticker, so he's like come to you because of that. That would never happen here. Even if somebody did see something like that and thought, "Ooh, I must go and speak to them," it would be socially awkward and really weird.
Yeah, then it must be something I do appreciate that in North America, because even though I'm socially awkward and weird, I do find those are my most favorite interactions are with strangers based on a small thing like that. Like one time I had a very meaningful connection with someone one time over a Captain Beefheart T-shirt, right? I was at a grocery store in Lewiston, New York. After I went down there to see Les Claypool and the Flaming Lips, and we were hitting a grocery store on the way home, so I wanted to bring some American cheese home with me because you can't buy American cheese in Canada. So I was, it's weird, but I was. So we're in this grocery store, and I saw this guy with the Trout Mask replica T-shirt on, and as I walked by, I went, "That's a fucking terrible album." and his wife looks at me and goes, "Do you know that guy?" He's like, "No, I've never met him before in my life." And then I walked by him again like 2 minutes later, and I forget what else I said to him. I kept making fun of Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band and whatever else. And then next thing you know, we're out in the parking lot for like 2 hours smoking weed, having this great conversation. Right? About,
wow.
And then as we're sitting there talking, some guy goes walking by with a Steve Wilson T-shirt on.
Right.
And I said something stupid about the album that was making fun of Stephen Wilson. And he's like, "What? What do you mean? You can't make fun of Stephen Wilson." And I said and I criticized the hell out of Stephen Wilson because I was in a phase where I couldn't stand Stephen Wilson. I listened to too much of it. So I just criticized him for like 2 minutes straight. And the guy was like, "I can't argue with any of that. You're right." And then he sat down and we were all shooting the shit, So like, I like when that kind of shit happens, And I even had a musician friend who I was playing music with for years who I met because he had really cool hair and I drove by him on the sidewalk all the time. So one day I saw him walking down a side street instead of a busy street. So I pulled over and I said, "Hey man, I've been meaning to come over and say hi. And like, I figured we might get along." And he was like, "Who the fuck are you? You just fucking pulled up in the middle of a city and introduced yourself to me and think we'll get along because of my hair," And it was funny, like a month or two later, I'm at his house at a party and his wife pulled me aside and she's like, "You're a fucking weirdo, Like like he loves telling the story about how this guy just pulled up on the side of the road and said, "Hey, we should be friends." And now you guys are friends.
Wow, that's brilliant. That sounds like a very American story. I mean, that would never happen here. I'd love to see love to see a version of that happen here. You know, if you pull up next to somebody, say, "I like your hair, we should be friends." Fuck off! Who the fuck are you, officer? I'm being accosted. It just wouldn't happen here. It just couldn't. There's no social framework that lets that happen here. It's everybody keeps away from it. Well, I'm saying that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the whole of the UK. Glasgow's a bit different. You can have spontaneous conversations in Glasgow with people. They're a bit more open to that, but still not to the degree that you guys are. That would be brilliant if that happened here. But I've never had anything like that happen to me.
And I've experienced it much more outside the city, you know, and I'm probably because I grew up in the country, too, right? Like it, you know, it's probably I'm more prone to that because that's, I find myself, I align much easier with someone who's from a rural area too, you know, like
right.
Most of my friends in Ontario grew up in Nova Scotia or Newfoundland, like in provinces where there's like no cities or a lot more space and a lot less people. You know, and I found if I met someone from Toronto, like I couldn't even talk to them. Like we were speaking different languages. Like literally, they'd be speaking some version of English I'd never heard before.
Right.
And you know, but that happens.
That's a funny old world.